My name is Derek Mayer from Novo Leadership. Employee engagement has been a buzzword for some time across the corporate and SME organisations. An employee might be categorised as being engaged if they follow the rules, they are loyal and do a good job, they foster a good working relationship with others, and they strive to participate positively within the company culture. However, energised people across your entire employment spectrum demonstrate even greater attributes. They can become persistent innovators of your future orientated strategies. They elicit greatness in others. They are purpose driven and hold themselves accountable, with generally, I find, a willingness to contribute to the company goals, enhance overall effectiveness. Their energy is infectious and it certainly makes others better as a result of their presence, and generally that impacts less, I find, in their absence. So the question is, how do you energise people? Performance and influence in modern companies has probably, in fact, definitely has less to do with organisational positions of authority and far more to do with the leader's ability to energise and align cascading microcultures within the organisational networks and across networks within the company. And it's really important to understand that energising behaviour and high energy behaviour are not the same thing. High energy charismatic leaders generate what psychologists tend to call high level stimulation. That is, they arouse emotions in others. However, that's short term and it's a form of extrinsic motivation. Leaders that practice energising behaviours let other people know they matter. For example, when someone comes into your office, to speak with you, do you devote your physical, emotional and mental presence, giving them undivided attention? Even a reserved leader can be energising in this way. More importantly, you will start to tap into a person's intrinsic motivation. In my early managerial career, one of my team came into my office to tell me that his wage slip, which were generally issued a week before pay, was wrong. He'd been shortchanged in some way. My energy was engrossed in all the challenges I was facing, and I was hearing him, but I certainly was not listening to him. My inner dialogue was probably saying, "Drew, why the hell are you bothering me with this? Can't you see how under pressure I am?" So I basically dismissed him by telling him to go to HR and they would sort it out. A week later, Drew came back into my office, obviously distressed because his wife was so upset that they had missed their mortgage payment because they were shortchanged in his pay. Yes, he spoke to a junior HR assistant and she said it would be sorted out by the time he was paid into his bank, but it obviously was not. It was one of my moments of truth. This guy and his family depended upon me. I was responsible to make sure he was represented, or he had a representative voice when he needs it, and I gave him none of my energy, which must have been so obvious to him, and he must have felt de-energised as a result. I resolved from that moment on that when anyone walked into my office, I would give them my full attention, unreserved, full devotion of energy to someone or anyone who walked into my office. And I'm proud to say I have followed through with that, though perhaps my wife may tell you that I'm still a work in progress with her. As for Drew, I went immediately to the HR manager and sorted it out within the hour with an official company letter that Drew could give to his mortgage lender. It's important to understand that people do not need to initially like a leader to be energised by them. For example, if I'm starting or turning around a manufacturing operation or a business, I am pace setting and commanding to the extent of pushing people. but with a purpose bias, not a performance bias. The ability to engage is not, the ability to energise is not a function of your personality. It is a function of the behaviours you exhibit in your interactions with others, where they command respect and they start to build trust. And for that to happen, you must be true to your character ethic and to the company values as you do that. Countless studies have concluded that the more you energise people, the higher your performance rating, and vice versa. Energy is infectious, it's transmissible, and it's not reserved for the leader. A team member who's energising elevates people around them. The team feel more creative when they're working with them, and as for an energising leader, the team are far more likely to contribute and even devote discretionary time to random improvement projects. According to a large study published by Harvard Business Review, from a Professor Wayne Baker, I believe it was, from the University of Michigan Business School, energises do 5 things very well. So let me try and remember them. Number 1, they create a compelling vision by focusing on possibilities rather than current or past problems. Number 2, they help others feel fully engaged, or you might say they involve people and accept a degree of risk in doing so. Number 3, they learn from their colleagues, or you might say they are fully open to constructive criticism and to observing behaviours in others that they might want to exhibit. Number 4, they are goal-orientated people, but flexible about how you get there. Or you might say they allow progress to occur in experimental and unexpected ways. And number 5, they speak their mind with assertion, which means maintaining integrity between the words and the actions which influence others. And it definitely will create a willingness for others to believe that you are trustworthy and that the goals you are setting are attainable. An energiser is not a cheerleader, or they are not a copious optimist. They simply focus people's energy on opportunities rather than on constraints. When they hear an idea, for example, that they might disagree with, instead of reacting and dismissing it outright, they'll search for what's good in that suggestion and incentivise the suggester in that direction. De-energising leaders tend to be more biased to their own opinions or ego, explaining reasons why something won't work or why you can't do it that way or a certain thing. There are so many times, for example, that I have seen group brainstorming sessions or toolbox talks, etc., being used for the purpose of energising, yet without truly listening with an open intent and the ability to influence suggestions in others without it becoming your idea, it becomes de-energising. And what I mean by that is the practice of thinking and making decisions as a group end up discouraging creativity or even individual responsibility. Leaders who are de-energising, often without intent, they don't realise they're being de-energising. They may possess really valuable knowledge and great alternative views on things, but because of de-energising behaviour, these people become isolated. Their expertise and knowledge go untapped. By contrast, energising people are more likely to increase that flow of information and by including divergent points of view throughout the organisation. So, how do you turn de-energisers into energisers? Well, first you need to create self-awareness. Then follow it up with self-analysis, or even better, feedback from your peers and from others, which is a crucial part of our coaching process. In one large SME chemical manufacturer company, our diagnosis through something called dynamic inquiry clearly demonstrated that the management team had a de-energising effect on each other and on their team. And that kind of data is hard to argue with. It prodded the managing director to analyse his own behaviour, where he discovered that he had been micromanaging for many years and had created robots or repeat offenders in his management team that follow his own behaviour. You can see his testimonial and the difference it made to his business and culture online. When you are self-analysing your own behaviour, look at how your own expertise affects others. Do you destroy others' energy in your haste to find a solution or demonstrate your own knowledge? Do you tend to force others to come around to your way of thinking? When disagreement arises, do you focus on the individual rather than on the issue at hand? Even as an experienced leader, I was guilty of de-energising at times by my approach. In one example, I stepped into a role as a divisional manager where my predecessor was still part of the global management team, but now in a different division. And instead of presenting in the same format that he had done for many, many years, I immediately switched up to something far better and far more affirming. However, as I presented it, it became aware immediately to me that I was de-energising the room. The rhetoric was probably in their minds, who does this guy think he is? My intention was honourable, yet my process was poor. In another example, I took over a factory in the US with the remit of either turning it around or closing it. Boy was I motivated not to close it. But my purpose before I actually got there was initially more egotistical for my own career benefit than for the people I was about to lead. Again, an amazing moment of truth for me that I quickly realised and corrected to a collective purpose before I actually got there. And the amazing thing was, I was more energised from that realisation and that collective purpose. We did turn it around, or should I say my team turned it around with my influence, though in truth not all of the management team survived to see it. The hardest thing about being an energising leader is that it takes energy. As a leader, if you don't bring that energy, especially at times when you don't feel good about yourself or something's happening to you in the outside world or in your family or whatever, in that instant, you will naturally de-energise those around you who are consistently looking for your emotional permission in order to understand how they can behave in certain ways. That's the number one thing you need to be aware of if you want to start to become an energising leader.